Hi, everybody. Welcome to Late Night Gun Chat. My name is Chuck, here from Alaskan Ballistics. If you've never been to one of these before, you just ask your questions and I give you my answers. It's worth exactly what you paid for it. And sorry, I don't have a better light yet. I'm working on getting a better light. Let me know what y'all think of the lighting. It looks pretty dim on my computer. I can't tell. So yeah, and the audio. So that's that. Again, ask your questions. I give you my advice. It's worth exactly what you paid for it. And that kind of thing. I'm a little excited. I found large rifle Magnum primers today from the gun store. Look at this. I paid $10 a sleeve, but I got large rifle Magnum primers. So if you're here in Alaska and you can't find any and you're almost out, like you literally cannot do any low development or hunt this year, I will let me know and email me alaskanballistics@gmail.com. First come, first serve. I got maybe 200 or 300 I could spare now. So that's that. Yeah, that's that. So anyway, we're going to shout out the chat like we always do. So make sure that you've said hi if you're in here. I do not know if you're here if you did not say hi. So that's up. Bamse Moy, all the way from Finland. Hey, what do you keep around in case the Russians invade, Bamse? Um, that'd be kind of cool to know. All right. Anyway, don't forget to join my MeWe or my arms directory group. MeWe's getting a little anti-2A, so they have been for a little bit. So doing that. Let's see. Evening Alaska One Andes. Chook's Outdoor Adventures is here second. Chook, if you're off of work tonight, you can actually join in. I don't know. This is the first time I've seen you in here. You probably just commented before you went to work. I appreciate it. Wondering about the mental Ashin society has become in the recent years. Yeah, I don't know. It's all liberalism. That's what it does. We got a special guest tonight, the tactical leprechaun himself, Clover Tack. Thanks for joining us, Clover Tack.
Hey man, long time no talk.
Yeah, I know. I was hoping you still liked me, but yeah,
Just been busy, man. It's been a busy year.
I know. I wouldn't blame you if you didn't like me, but um,
You're
yeah,
all right in my book.
yeah. If you haven't been to Clover Tack's channel, make sure you go check him out. He has all sorts of great gear reviews and gun reviews and accuracy reviews and everything else. So if you haven't been there, who are you and what are you doing with your life if you haven't been there? So still shouting out the chat here, Clover Tack. We got Dan Cruz, Kid Mark, Hunter Kirk from Northern Idaho. Hello from Tennessee, David Posey. All right, so Bamse Moy has a 22, a 45, or a 308. He lives in Finland in case the Russians go over the 800-kilometer border of Finland with Russia. So,
Well, the only base he doesn't have covered is the 12 gauge. Looks like, right?
yeah. Yeah, I'm sure he's a hunter. I'm sure he has one of those too. But yeah.
That's a pretty solid lineup there for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you got one for picking off sentries, one for close quarters combat, and your battle rifle, right? So can't you can't go wrong with that if you're fighting the Russians. That's a good one. All right. Of course, nowadays you need like drones and night vision and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, working. Oh, Choose Outdoor Adventures. Working. They saying, "What's up, Clover?" All right, we got a good question here first. Maybe you can answer this one, Clover. What is a good low velocity copper bullet option for the non Magnum 6.5 Grindle and such? You got an idea?
Man, I don't hardly shoot anything. I guess he's talking solid copper, right?
Probably hunting type copper, like a LRX or a CX, or you know.
Yeah, most everything I shoot is jacketed. I don't think I've got anything that's really solid copper anymore, or yet.
Yeah,
Say
yeah,
anymore yet. It's going that way.
yeah. Well, we shoot it up here because it's so effective.
Yeah.
Not because it's the Barnes TTSX is a very effective bullet, but you do have to have speed. And so
Mhm.
if you're shooting out of low velocity bullets, such as a 6.5 Grindle, I mean, your 120 grain, 129 grain, and a 6.5 Grindle is getting what 23 to 2400 feet per second. Am I wrong
Mhm.
there? And so I'd say you would want to look at the Barnes LRX. Oh, I got a box over here. It's just off screen. I can't do it, but Barnes has a TTSX as 100 grain. So you could probably load the 100 grain up to 2,700 feet per second. In fact, why don't I just look at Barnes data right now for that? But so Barnes 6.5 Grindle load data. That's one thing great about Barnes. It's all a PDF. It's downloading. Files downloaded. Thank God I got new internet. All right. And let's see. 100 grain weight bullet. They're saying with a 24-inch barrel. Now, I don't know a person who has a 24-inch 6.5 Grindle, but they're saying with a 24-inch barrel, you can get with accurate 2460, you can get 2901 with 100 grain TTSX. And that's in 6.5 Grindle. And there's the load data right there. And so if you need to take a screenshot of it, there you go. Trying to hold it steady. I don't know if I'm allowed to share that on YouTube or not. But yeah, that's all published data from the company's YouTube. Don't give me a strike. And anyway, yeah, so that is a compressed charge load. You might want to run it just a little bit less than a semi-auto. You're probably going to get, if you have an 18-inch barrel, you're probably going to get 27 out of that, maybe 2650. You know, if you got a 20-inch barrel, you'll probably get 2750 to 28 out of that. But it looks like the 100 grain TTSX is the way to go. They're also making a 115 grain. I just got a box of these too in their TAC TX series, which is a very good bullet, but it's going to even open up more than an LRX. And it looks like you can get that going. The 115 grain, their average, wow, goes down pretty good, 2660 with the 115 grain. And they're not giving you a 127 grain LRX. So there is a 115 grain TAC TX boat tail, and there's a 100 grain TTSX boat tail that are specifically designed for the 6.5 Grindle. And that's kind of where I'd stand. If I found the 100 grain Hornet ECX, I'd also want to give that a try. So,
you know, I just thought you were throwing out some stuff there. In 110 grain 308, Barnes makes a solid copper with a black tip, don't they?
yeah.
Called what's that
Yeah,
called? Do you know?
it's the
Vortex or something.
No, that's the Vortex is the name of their loaded ammo. I'm trying to search for it. I got one right here behind the computer. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, it's some projectiles. It wouldn't be
one,
the
right?
Yeah. I use those in 300 blackout, so I guess I do use some solid copper.
Yeah, and I can tell you, going 3,900 feet per second in a 300 Winchester Magnum is a totally different ball game. But because that's just going to
I guarantee you, yeah,
it's going to splatter on impact. Even though it's solid copper, it's still going to splatter like a VMAX because it's just going so fast. But it's meant to be exactly what Clover is using it for, 300 blackout, and it's meant to be a bullet that's going to expand very well, but also penetrate deep at those velocities. So, so that's that. Hunter Kirk just picked up some primers for $80 a brick. That's nice. Yep,
not bad nowadays.
Yeah,
34s. That's the military primers, right? 34s and 42s or 44s or something.
Well, I already showed it, but I just picked these up today. Very expensive, but you can't get Magnum rifle primers anywhere.
Yeah,
you just can't get them. How you doing, Richard E?
Now let me ask you this, because you load a lot of the Magnum stuff, the more expensive, and that's really with reloading. That's really where you get into some savings. Plus, you're able to customize it, right? Which is great. Right. It's that old farce of, hey, I'm going to reload to save money. No, you're not. But you load a lot of stuff where you can, and I do too. I've got my 300 Weatherby mag and 300 Win mag, some other things, but just curious because it's been a while, and obviously at that kind of price, I haven't even bought any reloading supplies in the latest, crazy. I was blessed enough to be stocked up, but I'm just curious, are you saving any money with your bigger calibers at that price still?
So I just loaded with brand new brass, Nosler brass, some 180 grain. I haven't shot them yet. 180 grain Barnes TTSX. They're right down here somewhere. I got them right here near my desk. That's not it. Yeah. Excuse me. They're not new. They're once fired Nosler brass, but let's pretend I bought them new. That not once fired Nosler brass was $100 a box of 50, right? And the TTSX was about $50. And then the powder for only the 20 shells that I loaded, the powder was probably, about $1. Maybe no, probably about $2. So, um, you know, for 50 rounds, you're using half a pound of powder, so about $20. And then the primers are about $10. So you got 10 plus 20 plus 50, let's call the bullets 50, and then 100 for the brass. So that's $1.80 a round. Am I doing my math right?
I think so. Yeah.
And so $1.80 a round. A box of these new, and I have it somewhere with the sticker on it where you could see it. The best price I paid lately for a box of brand new Barnes is $77.99.
Yep. Okay.
So yeah, you're still saving significant amount of money if you don't pay yourself minimum wage for the amount of
Right. Yeah. If it's if it's hobby, if you enjoy it, yeah.
yeah,
And if you're building really nice stuff, not
yeah,
plinking ammo. Yeah.
exactly. And so if you're single stage pressing it, man, a you're building a lot of stuff. And you're still saving money. I think so. Even on 9mm, you know, I've got used brass that I've loaded a couple of times, but I bought a thing of new brass for $10 and it was 50 pieces of brass. So that's $10. Um, new bullets are about $22 for 124 grain XTPs. So half of that box has 100 bullets. So half of that box is what, $11. And then the powder for 50
Yeah.
rounds is going to be like $3.
Right.
Because you use a lot less in 50 rounds than you do 50 rounds of 300 min mag. So you're still looking at 50 rounds with new brass, and the primers are about $7 a piece, $8 a piece right now. You're looking at
You mean a
$30,
box, right?
$30 for 50 rounds. Yeah,
For
$8 a
prime?
sleeve.
Asleep.
Oh
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
for the whole
100.
for the whole kit and caboodle, $30 for Hornady XTP new brass 9mm.
Oh, okay.
So the whole
Okay.
kit and caboodle, $30. I mean, so if you go buy new brass for 50 rounds, the American Gunner, the best price I've seen on the American Gunner is about 17, $18. So you're saving $2 or $3. But I haven't seen that in where I could buy it in the stores where I can buy it because it has to be imported and exported to Alaska. It's about $22, $23. So you're talking about $44 for 50 of them because there's 25 in those little American Gunner Hornady packs, right?
Mhm.
And so even 9mm, I would say you're still significantly saving if you don't pay yourself minimum wage for the amount of time it takes you to do it. So
Right.
I am buying powder for $6.50 a pound and $11.50 per 1,000 primers. Where are you at? And let us know who we have to blackmail. All right. I'm kidding, YouTube, if you're listening. Kidding. All right. So I couldn't help but read that one.
Maybe getting them from that all the stuff that was left in Afghanistan. That's possible, right?
Yeah, that's true. All right. Thoughts on 10mm versus 45 Super. David, I have 4 or 5 videos on this subject with different kinds of ammo. Typically, not always, depending on the type of ammo, 45 Super wins the numbers, 10mm wins the penetration. So that being said, the only gun I've shot a wounded brown bear in the head with is a 45 Super, and it did just fine. And granted, it was a small brown bear. He's about 6 foot, 400 pounds. It was basically a cub from last year, a yearling. And I was probably going to let him go, but then he saw me and was starting to look at me and ease towards my direction. And I'm like, you look like food. And I'm still not big and strong enough to fight a 400-pound bear. So I ended up taking him. Gorgeous pelt. That's the pelt you see in all the background of the videos. And gorgeous, thick, blonde hair, this thick, and, having shot him in the head, 45 Super is nothing to be slouching at. But in general, I would recommend 10mm out of those two. A, because you don't have to reload for 10mm. There's plenty of good ammo out there. B, and there's some places you can get 45 Super too. But B, you get 2 more rounds. And, everybody goes, well, that's not that big of a deal. You're not going to get 13 shots off in a bear defense. Oh yeah, do some reading. People get their 13, 15 shots off with their semi-autos. Are they aiming? Are they point shooting? I don't know. But since people started carrying semi-autos, the average shot fired in bear defense in Alaska went up from 1.2 to 3.7, according to Fish and Game. Or at least that's what somebody told me. Fish and Game said. Now, whether or not that's true or not, I have no idea. But assuming that's true, third-hand information, um, you know, I've heard of people emptying all 6 rounds of the revolver. I've heard of people, not getting a shot off at all. I've heard of people, getting mauled after all 6 shots of a revolver. I've heard of 9mm and 40 Smith and Wesson working. There's that Ammo Land article, and they do really good. I like the 45 Super. The guy who hand loaded the bullet for me has the only known 45 Super to go through a grizzly bear head in Alaska. So Mario, who if he's in the chat, he has that on his desk at work. He told me, and he likes to look at it. And I go, he thought it was a pretty good gift for him since he hand loaded that round. And we had a 200 grain bullet moving about 1360, 1370, depending on the day and the elevation. It might go up to 1390, 1400. And that was out of a 6.61 inch barrel. And that was a 200 grain hard cast semi wad cutter. And that went right through the grizzly bear's skull, right through here, back down through here. And I found it in his shoulder. I mean, so is what it is. That being said, I've shot through a black bear head with a 10mm. It works too. So is what it is.
Wow.
Dan Cruz, for crap hits the fan, would you rather have a 6.5mm Creedmoor bolt action rifle or a 308 bolt action rifle? Well, I guess I've answered mine because I have a 6.5 Creedmoor. To be honest with you, I'd still have to say, like, I would love to have 308 in a semi-auto. But for a bolt action, if I've stocked up my ammo properly, I'd rather have 6.5 Creedmoor. I'd rather have 6.5 PRC than both of them. Get the power of 270 much less flatter, or a 300 Win Mag or a 300 PRC or a 7mm PRC than both of them. I think there are better options out there for a crap hits the fan gun if you can stock up your ammo beforehand. If you can't and you're looking for ammo laying around, then you go 308.
Yeah, definitely.
But I don't wonder why you would limit yourself to a bolt action in that situation. I have both 2 bolt actions, 6.5 Creedmoors, and 1 semi-auto, and I still think semi-auto is the way to go if you're in a crap hits the fan situation. Because if you have a 20-inch 6.5 Creedmoor or 308 semi-auto, you're not losing that much velocity, 22-inch especially, and you got a battle rifle. You can have 25 rounds in it. You can put a lightweight Harris bipod on the front. And now you've got something you can shoot 1,000 yards, or you can shoot, or you can corner with, if you really wanted to in the house. Be a little bit big for room clearing, excuse me. But the 308 with an 18-inch barrel doesn't lose that much velocity. So my answer would be a 308, and it would be I wouldn't do a semi-auto. I'd go an AR-10, a high-quality AR-10. Probably an Aero Precision build or going up from there, Ballistics Advantage and all that kind of stuff. What do you think, Clover?
Out of those two, I go 308 just simply because that's what I've got a ton of.
Sure.
Bolt, semi-auto, whatever. And I'm not an AR-10 guy, so I'm talking FALs and other things when I'm talking semi-auto. But I just haven't jumped on the 6.5 Creedmoor like bandwagon. That's my thing. So out of those choices, like let's go with what you got. Not that there's anything, I don't have any problem with 6.5 Creedmoor, caveated by saying that. I just haven't got onto that bandwagon, at least yet. Maybe one day. Yeah, I think you make a good point though. I've got a Ruger American. It's basically my Coyote rig. And I'm predominantly shooting subsonic 308, hand loaded 308 out of that anyway. But I chopped that barrel at 16, and then in order to thread, had to thread it like some weird like 9/16, or I don't even remember, and then build an adapter, right? Because there wasn't enough meat, just standard barrel Ruger American, and wasn't enough meat for the suppressor. But Yeah, I mean, I don't notice. I don't know what the original barrel length on that was. 22-inch, probably.
They did
Heck,
build
I'd
an
have to.
18-inch Predator model.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I don't know. It was when the Ruger Americans first came out, and so I don't know. Now
yeah,
they've got a bunch of different versions, right? And this is when they first come out, and I think they were 22s, but it could have been something else. I know we chopped a lot off to get to 16, and I haven't played with it much past about 300, but I really I can't tell the difference between it and this, in a 22 or 24-inch barrel 308. Honestly, at those
right.
distances.
No, and especially with subsonic ammo, that's you
Well,
know,
even with supers, you know what I mean? I mean, I don't notice that much. I mean, effective accuracy. I mean, there's plenty. It's there.
and people don't realize a shorter barrel is more inherently more rigid. And
Yes.
so if it's a quality barrel, the shorter barrel, technically the 16 is going to be way more accurate than a 20 or 22-inch barrel
Well,
at the same quality level. Now,
yeah.
if you've got a Krieger, Criterion barrel or whatever that's
Sure.
28 inches, and you have a Palmetto State barrel or a Bear Creek Arsenal barrel that's 16 inches, no, the quality difference is going to make up the difference in accuracy.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, but a lot of people don't realize that shorter barrel. I mean, I'm not actually getting good groups out of that $500 McGowan barrel that I built the 22 250 AR-10 in
Hmm.
yet. I'm not saying I'm still a little developing for it. I got 1 inch group that's barely an inch inside hole to inside hole. It might have been 1.009 or something like that.
Right.
Um, and I just think that, well, that's a thin barrel and it's 26 inches. I mean,
Yeah.
physics are physics. It may not be an accurate barrel and it may not be McGowan barrel's fault because physics are physics.
Well, you
Um,
used to see, in long range competition, and that's really, really, really ramped up over the last, quite a few years.
Mhm.
But, once upon a time, you just didn't hardly see 20-inch barrels. And now you see 20-inch barrels in long range competition all the time, all the time. It's a
Yep.
common thing. And like 24 used to be minimum once upon a time.
Well, scopes gotten to get better at dialing. There's more.
This is true. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. To a
Yeah.
technology and different caliber, different cartridges available, and yeah, you're right. The tech as far as barrels, the tech as far as optics. Yeah.
All right. Buster Base says, just when I thought I was all set with 10mm handguns, Smith& Wesson comes out with a new performance center model. Here's my deal. Wait until you see a bunch of good reviews on it from not the bigger YouTubers who get it shipped to them. Not that they do a bad job. I just watched Such's video on it. He's a great guy. I've met him. He's a good guy. But like I would wait till Clovertac gets his hands on one, or Chook let me borrows his, or something like
Yeah.
that. One
You'll
of
be
us
waiting.
smaller, yeah, uh, one of us smaller guys who are going to put it through a whole bunch of different ammo. We're not going to shoot the
Yeah.
standard ammo at a metal target from 7 yards.
I am not a Smith and Wesson auto loader center fire Smith and Wesson auto loader guy. I just never have been.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you. I have had, I just released that fail video on the Smith and Wesson
Mhm,
10mm, the regular 10mm, and I'm just like, yeah, I would not build one for that. So
mhm. Now
anyway,
revolvers, different story.
yeah, like Booger Dog's building a 6.5 Grindle and a 20-inch barrel. Yeah, that's where you want to go. Les Bear. What's up, Ken Bean? Or Bian or King Bean. Ken runs ckbcastbullets.com. I got one of them right here too. And these are the black lipstick rounds, the gothic lipstick rounds, as I call them. And these things seem to penetrate better than Buffalo Bore or Underwood hardcast for sure. So highly recommend you go check out ckbcastbullets.com. And he doesn't pay me to say that. I don't get a kickback. He did send me some free bullets, here and there. And I did buy some bullets from him recently that I haven't loaded either. So go check out ckbcastbullets.com, the best coated hardcast bullets on the web you can get, in my opinion. So don't need another 10mm. Yeah, you're right. You don't need another 10mm until you can tell that Smith & Wesson one's come out. Mini loading used to save you money. Not sure it's worth it unless you shoot a lot these days. Correct. I think the black tip Barnes in TTSX. So that if it's black tip, but it's not the TTSX, it's the TAC XP. And I have a set of the bullets over here. They're just not in reach right now. So that's what they
That
are.
may be what I've got. I get my 110s. I know I've got a 110 Hornady that I use a lot, and then a 115 Barnes.
So this is a 110 Barnes, and they make this in a 120 Barnes.
Okay, they don't make it in the 115.
They don't make it at 115 unless it's 6.5 diameter.
Okay, and so it's not black tip, right?
Yeah,
The
this
TTSX.
is
Well,
the TTSX is not black tip; it's blue tip. Correct.
Okay, right. Yeah. Okay.
The TAC P or TAC XPD or whatever they call this
Right.
is black tipped.
Well,
Unless
yeah,
pistol hollow points, but yeah,
my 115s must be Hornady then.
yeah. All right. Same rib and a half, several things. So a lot of people. I'm back down here. Here we go. Oh, he was saying that 40 years ago he bought for 650 pound primer and 1150 per 1,000 primers. Yeah. What's up, Trigger Bar Philosopher? Another good little channel. Go check him out. Now let's see. All right. See, tell me what you think about this question. David Walcott. Thoughts on the Magpul M-Lock bipod? Go ahead. I haven't used it. Have you?
No. In all honesty, until this year, I don't think I ever even had a rifle capable of accepting M-Lock or key mod. It was either standard handguards on it or triangle handguards, that type of thing, or the quad rail type setups. So,
yeah.
And so I have absolutely zero M-Lock accessories. My plan was, I forgot when it was, around the first of the year, but maybe February. I don't remember. But I've been threatening to get a 3D printer for a long time. And finally did order like everything I need. I got a buddy that's got like 12 3D printers. He's got a whole room dedicated to it. And so he sat down with me and Amazon and a credit card one night. And when I had some money, and I'm like, I need to go ahead and get everything you think I need for a 3D printer because I don't know when I'll get around to using it or setting it up and using it. And I want everything to be there. And it's all still sitting in a box in there in the corner of the living room. But my plan was to actually build some M-Lock accessories, hand stops, and different things, rail covers and things, was to actually 3D print some stuff. It's one of the reasons I got it, was play around with that. But yeah, I have no idea, man.
There you go. So I know I would like to have one. Scott Leeper wants to know about the M14. That's a good one. It's a good one. Love my Armalite AR-10 and 308. It's a hog zapper for sure. Seems like a lot of people like Aero Precision. I've never had an issue with them. I'm buying a stock with M5 DBM bottom metal. Does anyone have a suggestion for the best magazine for 370? I do not know. Oh, 270. No, I do not. What pattern is it? Is it the long action ACIS or what pattern is it? Because the Magpuls work just fine, but there's some other ones out there. Worst decision ever made was to buy that Smith & Wesson 10mm when it came out past year. It's a total piece of junk. Had to sell it for a loss. Yeah. Yeah. 2 AR-10, 16 and 18-inch Armalite barrels. Very heavy. Building 2 more with lightweight 16-inch builds. Yeah, I think my next build is going to be either a lightweight 20-inch upper for my Aero Precision. So that's that. You got any thoughts on this? Thoughts on polymer lowers for an AR-15 Clover? I've never used them. I've shot one time, the Plum Crazy, when they first.
Yeah, that's the OG, bro. That's the OG.
That's the OG. Yep. And I'm telling you, it was pretty nice. I mean,
so I've got 2 on poly lowers now. Poly uppers, 100% stay away from all of them. Bushmaster come out with a carbon 15. Smith & Wesson did one too. Once upon a time, I don't think anybody is making them with the poly uppers, but man, do they suck. That's where all the hot gas is coming in and all the action is taking place, and those things will fall apart. I guarantee you. I've got several junkers sitting in a drawer over there. As a matter of fact, I use them just for fitting and testing type stuff. But I own a couple of New Frontier Armory poly lowers. Now they're second gen, so this would have been quite a few years after the Plum Crazies. I'm going to say probably 2010-ish era.
Okay.
And they are bench rifles for the most part. One is my youngest daughter. She hunts with that rifle, or has hunted in the past, deer hunted with that rifle. So, it's not beat around. I mean, it goes up and down in the stand, and that's about it. And then I've got a one on a 24-inch barrel with 223 wild chamber, 1-7 twist AR that is basically designed to run 100 grain projectiles. I was able to score some 100 grain 224s once upon a time, and basically built that rifle around that round, more or less.
Wow.
But just because it was unique, who've ever heard of 100 grain 223, right?
Mhm.
And haven't had any issues with them. So, but for the money, it seems like nowadays, um, even with it still being a little bit crazy, like I don't know the perk of going with a polymer. Like weight is super negligible,
Yeah.
and especially if it's not going to be a babied around bench rifle type situation.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know that I would even mess with it. I mean, what, 10, $20 maybe extra, and you're in aluminum?
Maybe. Yeah. I haven't seen, so the best price I've seen on a lower right now is on Brownells, and they had it for a billet aluminum for $50.
Whoa.
Not a forged aluminum, a billet aluminum.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
I could have jumped on it. I didn't. I'm gonna go back and look and see if it's still there. Now, it
Yeah.
was from a company they were clearancing out that didn't have good reviews. But that
Uh,
being said, it's still a billet aluminum up lower,
right.
and you could probably file something here and it'll be fine to work with, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
And I was just thinking about that. I was thinking about doing an actual billet aluminum for one of those Safety Harbor Firearms 50 BMG uppers, have
Oh
something a
yeah.
little stronger.
Yeah.
And for $50, I haven't seen a polymer lower less than $50 either. So,
Yeah.
um,
Back in the
yeah,
day when I got these, I think they were like 19.99, and even then you could get an aluminum, especially like a PSA blim. You could get
right.
an aluminum for like 39.99. So
I remember buying some
something. So
PSA Blims for 29.99.
it may have been. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
it may have been.
years
Yeah.
ago, so it's, like, not worth it, in my
Yeah, it
opinion.
was only a couple of, $10 or so, cheaper. So
And David Walcott, I think, lives out there in the bush of Alaska. I don't think you wanna take a polymer lower, you know, where it's gonna stretch, you gotta go on a winter caribou hunt to feed your family. I don't think you wanna take it out in negative 70 degrees.
yeah, if you're constantly in the cold, I mean, polymers in hot and cold, that's a big problem, and especially if they're taking any kind of abuse in that type of situation.
Yeah, you get a little crack in it, get some water in it, that thing's gonna shatter. So, when you fire.
Yep.
I wouldn't do that. All right, Dark Side DGM. Buy a Taurus 44 or save my shekels and buy a Red Hawk to match my GP 100. Buy a Red Hawk to match your GP 100. Stay away from Taurus. Taurus absolutely sucks. I will not buy any of their products ever. I've seen revolvers have cylinder springs break right out of the box. I've seen cylinders that you could just sit there and spin and they wouldn't lock up. Bunch of Taurus judges did that, as well as a Taurus tracker, a N44. When I worked in an indoor range in Atlanta, they'd have these big security card companies that guarded all the buildings that had Taurus 38 specials issued to them. Um, 100 people would come qualify at a time. 85, 90 of them would have working guns from Taurus. They're brand new issued guns from Taurus, 4-inch 38 special plus P rated. And so I'd stay away from Taurus, man. My Ruger GP 100 is awesome, and the customer service I got on it, because I bought one that had been shot out by somebody, and the customer service I got on it was amazing. So I would stick with Ruger.
So I have both.
Mhm.
Now they're older. My Taurus is the Tracker 44, 4-inch barrel.
Right.
And it's ported. And then the Red Hawk is a 6-inch barrel. I believe
Mhm.
it's 6 inch. It's definitely longer. Um, man, those Red Hawks are just tanks. Now I haven't had any issues with Taurus speaking of the copycats, the PT-1911, the PT-92, those, and the revolvers that I own, like I've never had a lick of trouble, and I've even got a protector poly Taurus in my EDC rotation. Like I do not have, just been lucky or whatever, I guess, because I hear the sentiment that you're expressing pretty regular. But I will say this about the difference between the two. That Taurus absolutely beats me to death as opposed to the Red Hawk. The Red Hawk just handles the 44 so much better. And it's not the 2 inches or so difference in barrel. I mean, it's really not.
Yeah.
It's weightier. It's just more solid. The grips and all on it and everything is it's just all better.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say that too. Like, you can't even shoot the heavy buffalo bore bear loads in your Taurus, can you? Like, you're not supposed to.
I've never tried, so I've never gotten crazy. But there's a reason when you get to your load books, they say Ruger on
Yeah,
some
and a lot of
specifications.
people don't know that,
Yeah,
and a lot of people don't know that. Sometimes in modern books they don't do it anymore, but especially in like catalogs and like the powder catalogs and stuff, they have one listing for Ruger in 44 Magnum and another for Smith and Wesson Taurus and
yeah.
Colt.
Oh, 357, like any of those,
Yeah,
right? Any of those cartridges
41
that
Magnum,
Ruger
same thing.
makes. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And so people don't realize that you could get 900 foot-pounds of energy out of a Ruger 357. You put that same round in a Smith and Wesson, you can blow it up and break it.
Yeah.
So people don't realize how much stronger that Ruger is as a tank. So
And once upon a time, I would say, comparing Ruger to Smith and Wesson. Once upon a time, and in the time that I bought my Red Hawk in 44, I was looking at a Smith and Wesson, and I was looking at the Red Hawk, and basically got talked into and talked myself into the Red Hawk, just because of how robust it was over the Smith and Wesson. And I kind of kicked myself now that I didn't buy the Smith and Wesson, because it's like, well, the Smith and Wesson, went up in value, held the value, that sort of thing. I think those days are long gone. I think the Red Hawks and the Black Hawks, I think they go up in value as
yes,
well as the Smith and Wesson stuff does. I really do.
absolutely.
Taurus is always going to be a Taurus. I mean,
Yeah.
unfortunately. So range fund, things like that, like okay, but investment piece, they are not.
Serious bear defense dark side. I don't know. I would not trust it to a Taurus. Now I have a friend who carries a Taurus. He's been on a hunt with me, and I'm like, you're retarded. But no, he's actually a nice guy. But like, yeah, it's no, I would not buy a Taurus. I would save your shekels and buy a Red Hawk. I would buy a single action Black Hawk before I bought a Taurus,
Well,
even
the
though you're,
Taurus is, oh yeah, absolutely. The Blackhawks are solid too.
but you're only going to get a one shot in a bear defense if you're lucky to pull that hammer back.
Right.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
the what was I going to say with the Taurus? Um, Dang it. Yeah, I don't know. Going with the chat. I lost my train of thought there, but it was something. If I think about it, I'll jump in.
All right. Rato bought a lot of hardcast bullets for Mac bullets. The 500 and 576.548 are outstanding. Good. Sub 67 Rebel SST AMC. Are you looking to push Chuck's button on the Taurus? If you don't know, just ask him why the Judge is the best revolver. Oh, we should get Chuk a spray bottle to do some more super serious. No, are you referring to the dunking of the 510 he was doing? Thoughts on the Ruger Wrangler 22 revolver? I like the Ruger Wrangler. In fact, I plan on buying the Super Wrangler now that has the interchangeable cylinders and in the bronze as soon as I can afford one. I would like to have that for the kids to match my GP 100 that Ruger made in the Ruger Wrangler bronze for me. They Cerakoted that. So if you haven't seen that video, go check that out too. But yeah, I like the Ruger. I want to have the 22 and my 357 side by side to match.
Yeah, sure.
Right. Yeah. I like. You've shot the Ruger Wrangler bunch, hadn't you, Clover?
I have. You know, I'm trying to think, but I think I think our club had a couple of those or something. But
Okay.
so I have. You know, they're okay. I mean, at the end of the day, it's not a single six. um, but it I will say this: it's better built, better quality than the Rough Rider for
Oh,
sure.
good, good,
You know what
because
I
I have
mean?
laying in pieces too. I know over here.
Yeah, yeah. Especially the finish, you know. But even when you pick it up and it's in your hand, and then for the money, the Rough Riders can be fun. Don't get me wrong, but that's their play toys. I think if you want something that to getting into the entry level, really serious type revolver in that single action and whatever in rimfire, yeah, probably the Wrangler is going to be the way to go.
Yeah, and I had a friend growing up with a Wrangler. Growing up, I was 18, 19 at the time. Over the Ruger single six, and you're right, the single six is a better gun. If you
Oh
can
yeah,
afford a single six, go get a single six. But yeah,
they're collector's items at this point, basically.
yeah, I don't like plastic anything. There you go. Hitting the like button. Thank you, Richard E. My brother has a newer Taurus and is a good revolver. The 44. Excuse me. I don't think the Ruger is worth what they are asking for currently. Maybe not, but the Ruger doesn't blow up with bear loads.
Well, I don't know what I remembered what I was going to ask, and I don't know the answer to this, but Taurus has really been coming along and really pushing and everything else. Their revolver lines, especially the big bore stuff, right?
Right.
So much so that it has actually hurt Smith and Wesson a little bit
Hmm.
um, to hear certain people in the industry and whatever talk. But I gotta wonder on the Taurus versus other stuff. Is Taurus versus Ruger, let's say. What kind of price difference is there? Because even the Taurus and the big bore stuff is not cheap.
No, I mean the Taurus and a 44 Magnum. I mean their tracker 44 Magnum is a 5-shot built on a 357 Magnum frame, if I believe right, and that's the one I've seen issues with, and um, it's um, it's like a $600 gun.
Yeah.
So as
That's
opposed
the
to
one I've got, and again, I hadn't had any issues, but because
yeah,
of being built on that frame, like I said, it'll beat you to death.
oh yeah, it definitely will, even ported. So um, So Spokane Survival Training and Education. Fort Scott 2E 10 millimeters, the best quality factory ammo for the price I can find. Under 90 cents a round. It's solid copper and is running about 1,500 feet per second. Yeah, it's not bad ammo. It would not be my first choice for bear protection because you never know if it's going to hit and tumble out. And I shot it through 3 pieces of pine board, and hard cast will go right through that, but that one stopped. The 2E stopped in the 3rd piece of pine board. So I would say it's not the best quality factory ammo. It's pretty decent, and I'm not going to say I've never carried it on a hunt because I have, but it's always in a backup magazine type role. Um, it'd be if I saw a small game and didn't have my 22, I'll take my 10 millimeter and put that ammo in, and then try to go after the small game. Um, and the reason is that I don't get good accuracy from it as well. Much better accuracy from Underwood or Buffalo Boar as well. So
Yeah, I can echo that. I feel the same way. I'm not knocking Fort Scott. They're good friends and they make good stuff. But yeah, accuracy wise, I think yeah, it leaves a little something to be desired. Again, when you get into really good accuracy, right? If we're talking effective accuracy,
yeah, it's
I
there,
mean,
but
it'll get it done. It'll get it done. Don't.
it's
But
going to give you the same
yeah,
accuracy Remington core lock is in most
yeah,
cases.
yeah.
You're not
But if
gonna
you
have great accuracy, but some
right,
people's gun shoots it great.
right, yeah, and if you're putting up paper and you're shooting for groups, you know what I mean? Like you can tell it's not as accurate.
Yeah, so I mean, I did a video on the Fort Scott Tui bullet versus the Barnes TTSX. They were both 120 grain and 7mm 08. And if you check out that video, what I did was I literally pulled the bullet off the 120 grain out of the factory box of Tui and put a Barnes in. I didn't check the powder or nothing because they're both 120 grain solid copper. Why would I change the powder, right? And the Barnes on their powder charge in their brass, the Barnes got an inch at 100 yards. The Fort Scott 2E got 3 inches at 50 yards. So, I mean, it was bad. It was bad.
Yeah, that's pretty rough.
That's pretty rough. Now, that being said, I mean, they have a video on their channel of shooting a black bear from a bait stand with a 380 and their tumble bullet, and it just splatters it because it transfers energy well. But that's that. So, I can get a Taurus for $650 on Buds, double for the Red Hawk. Spend the money, double for the Red Hawk, because you're going to have to spend the money for shipping the Taurus back and selling it anyway. So, you know what it is. So,
if you're spending $650, you know what I mean. Like,
yeah,
that's not chump change.
No, but
if you're going to spend that much, yeah.
If you're going to spend that much, go find a used Ruger. I mean, I know they hold their value, but you could still find a used Ruger for $800 to $850. Easily.
Probably. Yeah, probably. I would agree with that.
Yeah. You know, the used Ruger is going to be way better than that. And even though the Rugers have held their values, I mean, I got my GP 100 for $419. I mean, granted, it's a 357 Magnum. Yeah. But, and you know, granted, it was shot out and I needed to send it back to Ruger, and they did a lot of work for me. So if y'all ever want to get your gun worked on, call Brian at Ruger. He'll Ruger Revolver Center. Call Brian, he'll take care of you. All right. He's probably tired of me talking about it. But that's that. What are your thoughts on a 7mm rim mag for bears? I've used it. It's great. Thinking about using it this weekend because I have 2 guns that are really good and sighted in right now. And that's my 7 mag and my 6.5 by 284. The only reason why I'm going to take my 6.5 by 284 is probably for, you know, it's mostly black bears. They're fairly smaller than grizzlies, and it's going to be, you know, very effective bullet, you know, Barnes 127 grain LRX. And it's the most accurate rifle I own. Accuracy is more important than stopping power any time of the week. But yeah, 7mm rim bag for black bears, good. For big brown bears, I mean, people have done it with less. So, you know, I would say definitely go for it. I know somebody who took a brown bear with a 243. Not my first choice, but, you know, it's been done. So, yeah, 7mm rim mag. I've had no issues hunting with my 7mm rim mag, and if a bear had shown up, I would have taken it. No issues, no qualms, no ifs, ands, or buts, no runs, no hits, no errors. You know, that's the way I see it. What do you think, Clover?
Well, I don't know. I don't know about the whole bear thing. You know, biggest thing I can talk about is maybe a big pig, but yeah, seven rim is. I mean, it's a good cartridge, man. So I think you can do a lot with it.
Okay, I'm not sure. Oh, I think he's talking about the Smith and Wessons, and they're running like Swiss watches, which is cool. I'm glad they're running for you. So I really am.
Yeah, my bias is a personal thing, I guess, more than anything. It's like I just don't like them. I let other people that you know trash talk or whatever. I'm sure they make some good stuff, but
well, I mean, I have a Smith and Wesson I carry all the time, the little 40 Smith and Wesson Gen 1 Shield, and it works great. But my 9mm Smith and Wesson, 5-inch M&P 2.0, I had to ship it back to the factory because the trigger would fail to reset a lot. And when it would fail to reset, it would cause a jam, and it only did it when I was firing fast. The trigger would fail to reset, and for some reason, it would stovepipe at the same time. So I would say, but once I send it back to the factory, not an issue, and I can just sit there and fire it as fast as I could. I mean, my choices were to send it back to the factory or put an Apex trigger in it, and I don't know that putting the Apex trigger in it would have stopped the stovepiping. Probably just would have stopped the failure to reset. So, right. And sometimes those lighter triggers with lighter springs and stuff cause the failure to reset to be worse.
Mm-hmm.
I've had that situation with Glock before. I'll stay with the Glock stock trigger even though they suck, because I know that under heavy recoil of 45 Super, if you went to a lighter trigger spring, just a lighter disconnector and all that kind of stuff, just thinking I'm going to lighten it up a little bit. No, now it doesn't actually go into battery. I went right home from the range and put the old factory one back in.
Right.
So it doesn't reset the trigger at all. So poured a pile of money into their factory recently, and the revolvers are looking pretty good to me. And I'm an old school Smith & Wesson man myself. That means anything. Well, it must have been since 3 years ago when I was selling them at Cabela's when they absolutely stunk, and we had 3 Tauruses come in a row that you could just spin the cylinder on and they wouldn't actually lock. You sit there 5 minutes. 5 minutes later, here you are, just spinning the cylinder.
I think they've come a long way in the last, I want to say maybe 3 years. I know that there's been three. I think 3 people that have went in the last 3 years. You've got 3 people that have moved from Walther to Taurus at varying levels of the company. And so I know that there's been some change up and all with that. There was one out there that you put on the screen, but you didn't say anything about it. And it was the Savage Impulse straight pulls.
Oh yeah,
that's what he was asking about. So those are awesome. Like, I don't have one, but I've shot those quite a few different times, and impressive from like day one. The first time I shot that was about 2 years ago at Talladega at a show. And at 100 yards with the 6.5 Creedmoor version, granted I was on a bag, but I shot sub MOA. It was 5 rounds sub MOA with that thing. First time I'd ever shot one of those. It feels good. And ever since then, I mean, anyone I've ever shot is just as accurate as it can be. So I think they're pretty cool.
Cool. Yeah. I've never tried them, so that's good to hear, Clover.
And fast with that straight pull. Of course, that's the whole point, right? Of the straight pull.
Yeah. Let's see. I would buy a Taurus revolver all day long, not much on a semi. See, I've seen problems with both of them.
And yeah, I am not a semi guy. They just
had that recall on a bunch of guns too.
They did, yeah. Don't drop it. Yeah, it's like. But yeah, I feel the same way there. I'm not big on their semi, with the exception of, like I said, of the PT 1911, the 92, the PT 22. I think it is the copycat firearms they have, or in semi-auto, are pretty solid. It seems like.
Yeah, cousin of mine shot some Buffalo Bore 454 Casull in his Taurus. Damn thing has some recoil, partial numb my hand when I shot it. Yeah, I imagine it so. Now that's one good revolver of the Taurus is the big Raging Bull, where you have to double lock the cylinder, where it has the 2 locks on the cylinder. Those were pretty good. There was no issues with those. The big 8-inch 44 and 454 Magnums and stuff like that. They actually did pretty good with those. I never saw anything problems with those. But the problem is nobody can afford to shoot those enough to have problems. So
yeah, even if you go with that 460. The new 460 they've got, and even with all the different cartridges you could run in that, none of them are cheap.
No.
So,
well, none of them are cheap, but there's still those cowboy loads for 45 Colt that are like $34, $35 a month.
Oh, and if you loaded, you could load down and do stuff for
Yeah.
sure. You got to be really careful with loading too light in a revolver, though, or otherwise you'll push a primer back and lock it up. And that sucks if you ever had that happen.
Yeah. And that's the thing is people don't understand. When a revolver does jam on you for stuff like that, it's a lot of times a gunsmith issue. You can't clear a jam like you can with the semi-auto right there,
Yep.
So do you think the 375 H&H is the most influential cartridge? No, I do not. I'd say 30-06 it's probably the most influential cartridge. You had 2 world wars, plus, I mean, they were still 30-06 in Korea, and I don't know. I mean,
and then all the stuff that has been built off of the 30-06, right? Like 6.5, like 6.5 Creedmoor is basically 308, is basically 300 Savage, is basically 30-06. You could just trace the lineage of that cartridge, a lot of different cartridges, back to 30-06, in some way or another.
Yeah, and like the thing about 30-06 is, it's good at everything. It's not great at anything, in my opinion, except killing Germans and Japanese and Chinese and North Koreans, I guess. But and I'm saying that in a historical context, YouTube. I don't want to go kill those people. But yeah, like it's good at a lot of things. It's not your premier elk cartridge or bear cartridge where you want a 300 mag, but it has just enough power where you don't feel uncomfortable taking it. Yet, you'd feel uncomfortable taking your 300 mag deer hunting in South Alabama because it's way too much gun for that. Yet you don't feel uncomfortable with a 30-06 doing that, So it's got that range too. But I mean, 270 is derived from it. 280 Remington is derived from it. That's the same casing, you know. They're derived from the 3303, if you will.
Mhm. Yeah.
But 25-06 is derived from the same casing.
And originally the 30-01, I think.
Yeah,
Too.
yeah,
I think it all started with like a 30-01.
right. hmm and the reason why I'd say it's the most influential cartridge is our soldiers who used it in World War I came back and just sung its praises. They loved the
Mhm.
darn thing.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
is what it is. But um, yeah,
Yeah, my grandpa, he's been passed away for many years now, but he was in Korea,
yeah, mine too.
and he was one of those that really loved the Aught 6 and cursed the 30 carbine, to like
Yeah,
cursed that thing. So
yeah. Um, Sorry, my wife and my son were supposed to get home, and my daughter was supposed to get home like 15-20 minutes ago, and they're not home. So I was texting to make sure they're still okay, not stuck on the road somewhere. Um, Ruger Wrangler's fun, and the Wranglers. Is there a 40 Smith and Wesson plus B? Yes, it's called a 10 millimeter. Um, 40 Smith, 40 Smith and Wesson. So plus P rounds generally run 2 to 3,000 psi more than the standard pressure. So like standard pressure 45 is like what? Correct me if I'm wrong, Clover. It's like 18 to 22,000, right? And plus P is like 23,000 to 25,000 psi
yeah, I
on
would
the
agree with
inside of the
that.
casing.
Yeah.
Yeah. 9 millimeters like 32, 9 millimeter plus P is like 34, plus P plus is like 35, right? Uh, correct me if I'm wrong there. 9 millimeters is much higher pressure cartridge than 45. 40 Smith and Wesson is already 35,000 psi. So it's already where 9 millimeter plus P is 9 millimeter plus P plus.
Right.
So every hot loaded hollow point for a 40 Smith and Wesson that's loaded to where it's gonna get the velocity it says it does on the box is a plus P, essentially, if you will. They don't market that and that's why they had issues with the first 40 Smith and Wessons blowing up because people were trying to make them into 10 millimeters. They had to weaken the walls of the case to seat the bullet deeper into the casing from the 10 millimeter. So the walls are thinner, and so it's basically all 40 Smith and Wesson are a plus B. Um, so that's that. What sling do you recommend for an HT shotgun? Um, I recommend whatever sling goes on the barrel cap. So any sling will work, but use one that goes on the barrel cap because your only other choice is to if you have a semi-auto, there might be a hand guard you can put that has a quick detach, but that gets in the way of the gas system, and so I wouldn't drill anything deep into that to put a quick detach. And then if you have a pump, well then your sling's going to be moving if you have a quick detach or a quad rail on the pump to do it. So I use one that gets the end cap and just wraps around the end, and that's what I have on my current home defense shotgun, which is also my bear defense shotgun. What do you think? You got any brands or anything you recommend, Clover? You're more into that stuff.
There's there's plenty of barrel clamp style, mounts that are out there. Um, but
Mm.
yeah, as far as the sling itself, um, honestly, something that's fairly pliable, so like a nylon sling.
Right.
You want it to be wide, but not super wide. Like, you see a lot of hunting style slings that are really, really wide and padded because they're for comfort, right? And you
Yeah.
don't want that. You want something that, you can sling up. Um, and it's a home defense thing. You're not going to be in it long enough, and the comfort's not really going to matter at that point, right?
Right.
One of the biggest things I think is making sure that you spend the time with whatever sling and mounting system you go with. Spend the time learning what is the quickest and most secure way of slinging it for you, and that's going to depend on body type and a lot of different things, how long your arms are, and
Yep.
a lot of different issues. But I would say whatever you choose, I don't think you can necessarily go wrong. Just practice with it, train with it.
Agreed. And for my AR-10s and AR-15s, I use the Magpul sling, and I like the Savvy Sniper sling that Military Arms Channel recommends. They're really good as far as brands are concerned. But just having the right attachment for the shotgun is the biggest deal. And I have the end cap that you screw on that has the swivel stud in the end cap, and it came with the sling. And then the sling just has the Velcro around the stock on the back of the stock at 2 points, and I've never had an issue with that sling coming off. And I don't even know where the original end cap for my shotgun is. It's probably in Georgia somewhere at my parents', if there. So, if you had to guess, do you think firearms will get more expensive as time goes on? Ammo as well? Yes and no. Things aren't getting more expensive. Our dollar is losing value.
Agreed.
Big difference. So if you had a gold standard and gold was worth so much, everything would stay just about the same. But because we're printing so much money, things are going up because your dollar is not worth as much as it used to be. So yes, it'll look like things are going up when really the value of the object is staying the same. If you invest in savings bonds right now, you're an idiot. So
yeah.
Yeah, if you invested them in the 1990s, you're a moron. But yeah,
what to carve out an exception, I guess, on that in a way, because I see a lot of people that and I say it's not a current thing, but throughout all of my years, when you're talking about milsurp, I can't tell you the number of people over the years that are like, "Oh, it's too high, I'm not buying it. It's too high, I'm not buying it." And even if you pay a little bit more now for something milsurp, you're not going to regret it 5 years down the road. They don't make that stuff anymore. They're certainly not going to bring the droves of them that are in other countries that they could in. Maybe one day, but I highly doubt it. So, if it's something like milsurp, yeah, they're only going to go up.
Or full autos. If you had the
This
money
is
to
true.
buy a full auto, back when I was first looking into guns, you could get an MP5 for $10,000.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, full auto
probably 75 now for an MP5.
I think the lowest I've seen them is 50. Yeah,
Yeah,
last year.
yeah.
So yeah, 75 for an MP5. I mean, you could turn your MP5 around and buy a freaking piece of property, and
The cheapest full auto years ago that I ever seen was about $3,000, and that was the little like the Mac 10, but the 380 version. Was that a Mac 11 maybe?
Yeah.
And they were about $3,000, but I think those are pushing 10 grand now.
Yeah. I remember we used to be able to get a Ruger AC 5.56, the Mini 14 that was full auto. You could get those for $4,000, and now they're pushing 12, 13.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. So and that's why we got to fight the NFA and the Hughes Amendment. So which the NRA supported, by the way. So yeah, lemons can happen to any brand. Gen 3 had a big issue with their extractors on Glock. So Clover is not live in AK, he's live with AK.
Right.
If he were live in AK, he'd be sitting on the couch with me. And if he wasn't sitting on the couch with me on the same computer and he was somewhere in Alaska and didn't tell me, I'd go find him and punch him.
Yeah, I would never do that.
Yeah, I know.
On the Glock extractor thing, I hear a lot of people, and I don't know if you shoot 40s in any of your Glock 10 millimeters without the barrel swap, but I know people that man, they swear by it. They shoot 40 in their 10 millimeter Glocks all day long, and because of potential extractor issues you're talking about, that's always scared me, because a pistol cartridge head spaces on the case mouth, and if you put a shorter case in there, it's obviously not head spacing, and so you're head spacing off the extractor at that point. And if that extractor fails, that's a bad day.
And with the likelihood of having an overpressured 40 Smith & Wesson being
This is
high.
true. Yeah, this is true.
Now, if you have a moon clip and a 10 millimeter revolver, that's okay.
Yeah, different situation, because your head spacing off the
FN Bruno gun. They say they designed the extractor where you can fire either one.
Right.
So, and I've seen people do it. So, there's that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. there's a 284 Winchester, and it's not a watered down 7mm rim mag. It is a short action, barely a short action case. And it is the first kind of, I wouldn't call it a short Magnum because it's not. It doesn't hold that kind of powder, but it had the same idea of having a fatter case where, at a standard size, what do you call it, head on the case. So this was the standard size here that a 308 30-06 was, right? What do you call that? Come on. Clover, tell me. I can't remember. Just this part of the case right there at the end.
The belt.
The belt. Well, it doesn't have a belt, but the rim down there, the rim is the standard size. But the case was fatter than the rim, and so you could get 55 grains of powder in it like you could a 270, but it was in a short action, and you couldn't do that if you just necked a 308 bullet down to 7mm 08. You could only get 45 grains of powder, maybe 47, 48 with modern powders.
So it's a rebated rim. Is that what
rebated rim? That's what I'm saying. It's a rebated rim. So that's what the 284 Winchester was. I like the Wildcat, and I have one. It's my favorite rifle, and I hunt with it all the time. The Wildcat that they first did in the 1970s with that, and that's where the 6.5 by 284 came in, because it came from a 284 Winchester load, and it came from a 284 Winchester load, and they necked it to 6.5. So I have a 6 by 284, and eventually Norma standardized that. But it gets almost 270 Winchester ballistics, with not that much more. I mean, my 270 Winchester is getting 3089 with 120 grain LRX, and my 6.5 by 284s with a 127 grain LRX is getting like 3040. So I'm within 50 feet per second of a 270 Winchester. But the 270 Winchester does it with a shorter barrel. The 6.5 is overboard and needs a longer barrel. So it is what it is. So 30-06 is the Mac Daddy of all center fire cartridges. Yeah. Yeah, supposed to give 30-06 case capacity in a short action. Yeah, there we go. Hillbilly Scholar has said it better than I can. Thank you, Hillbilly Scholar. So in Europe, you can get an MP5 for 3,000. So artificial scarcity. Yep. So what happened is our government banned the manufacture of full autos in 1986 for civilian use. Like, you could get one before then, and you can get one if you're a special builder and you have a special firearms license. But after 1986, the general public cannot get one.
Yeah, well, and more importantly, that like we can get one, but it has to be manufactured prior to that is the problem, right?
Yeah.
And so
because it's manufactured prior to that, it's a supply and demand issue.
Yep, exactly.
Yep. Whenever the government gets involved in that, I'll watch more of your videos. Thanks. Trying to expand my firearms knowledge. Thank you very much. All right, Brian. Good evening, Alaska. What are the top 5 things to do and/or hunts for non-resident to do in Alaska? First thing I would do is come up here to salmon fish. Okay. Come up here to salmon fish. If you want to do it yourself, I'll tell you when and where to go. If you want to hire a guide, I'll tell you who not to hire, but come up here and salmon fish. And you can fish for king salmons have been really bad. They've been banning this fishing of them lately. The runs have been really bad. You can fish for silvers. You can fish for reds. You can fish for pinks. They're not pink salmon. We would not consider. When I go to a restaurant in the lower 48 and they said, "Oh, we serve salmon," I'm like, "Cool. What kind of salmon?" They have to go back to the cook and ask, "What kind of salmon is this?" And then they come out and tell me, "Oh, it's Atlantic raised pink salmon." And I look at them and go, "That's freaking dog food. I live in Alaska." But you can fish for pinks up here too. And the wild pinks are actually pretty decent comparatively. Especially if you get them before they hump out and start to fall apart with the grading of their bodies that you see. But yeah, I would go salmon fishing first. Caribou and moose hunting are probably your 2 most popular things. Moose hunting is very difficult because you got to get a 2,000, 1,500 pound animal out from 25 miles back off the road. So you need a 4-wheeler, you need a guide. Caribou hunting you can do a lot better if you get the right permit or get the right stuff, and you can get it usually get them 4 or 5 miles off the road, or even closer than that. you still take, they're still bigger than a mule deer, so you have to cut them up and carry them out. I shot one about a mile off the road one time, and it took me. I shot it at 10 o'clock. I got back to the car at 3 o'clock in the morning. So, yeah, that's that. What's your favorite belted Magnum? I love my 7mm Remington Magnum. I love it a lot, but the 300 Win Mag is probably more practical. But yeah, it just based on the guns I have and the experience I have with them, I love my 7mm. I love my 7mm Remington Magnum. So just got a new scope for my 300 Winchester Magnum though. I got the Leupold VX Freedom 4-12 CDS with the Tri MOA. So not the most expensive Leupold in the world, but very lightweight, and it's still a Leupold. It's still bright, clear, lightweight, and it's still going to hold 0. So I'm not worried about it. So what do you think about Charter Arms? Again, cheaper revolvers often have issues. I think they're better than Taurus, but not always. What do you think, Clover?
I would put them probably below Taurus, honestly. They did have some cool stuff that, once upon a time, and I don't know that they still do. I haven't paid a lot of attention to them recently, but I had for quite a few years, had a little Charter Arms Bulldog in 44 Special
Yeah,
that I never had any issues with. And
that was a pretty good gun. Yeah.
and if you were looking to carry something like a 44 Special, 44 caliber, it probably would have been a good choice.
Yep. All right. So Anthony Fairbanks, what's up, AB? I went to the range from a 7mm with 160 grain. Man, my gun loved them 160 grain, even at 200 yards, same hole with 2 shots, hit a golf ball at 180 yards. Well, I say you're ready to hunt there, Anthony. Good job, man. Hope you enjoy it and get some meat on the table with that. That 160 grain with a well-constructed bullet will kill anything in Alaska. Of course, grain doesn't matter compared to bullet construction, except for the twist rate of your barrel. Yeah, if your gun loves that, if it loves 160 grain and it's a well-constructed bullet. Now, if it's a 160 grain and it's not bonded and it's going to fall apart when it hits bone, it's still not going to take down the game the way you want to up here. But it is what it is. Chris Heitzman, I have heard about compressed loads, but I haven't had the chance to look into it. What are they? What advantage are they? Okay, so this is a compressed load right here. When I shake it, you cannot hear the powder. And the bullet is far enough down in there to take the powder and push it together more. And that's what a compressed load is essentially. Does that make sense? Clover, you got anything to add to that? You might be able to explain it better than me.
I think you did. Like there's literally no room in the case.
Right.
And you're pushing the projectile down and compressing the powder charge. You explained it really, really, really well.
Yeah.
Advantages? I don't really know of an advantage because odds are you could get the same velocities out of another load if you use another powder. Maybe I don't know.
Use a different powder. Sometimes you can get close. In certain calibers, there's that one powder that sticks out and gets more, and you have to get a complete load. So for example, my 22-250 in 62 grain bullets, that H380 is going to get me 100 feet per second more than any other powder, and it's a compressed load. Even the max load was 40.3 in H380, and even at 39.5, there's compressed load. So yeah, you can get more velocity, but that's the advantage, more velocity. You are going to put more wear and tear on the brass and the rifle, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I gotta wonder. It's going to be dependent too on barrel length, right? Like,
yeah,
if you're getting more powder in there, do you have enough barrel length to actually burn said powder, right?
Correct. And then my 22-250, I do. I got a 26-inch barrel, but in my 7mm 8, when I've done it, yeah, there's a flame throwing. I had a compressed load of Barnes 150 grains, and they were only getting 2,600 feet per second instead of the 2,800 feet per second because I have an 18-inch barrel. And of course, they're velocitying everything in a 24-inch barrel. So I'm losing 200 feet per second over 6 inches of barrel. And there's people that were shooting with me that day could notice a flame in the daytime coming out of that barrel.
Right.
Yeah. So there's it was a fairly slow. I was using BLC2, fairly slow burning powder for what it is in an 18-inch barrel. And that's one reason why I say 308 is the short action caliber to get most of the time even though I don't have one, is because it doesn't lose as much velocity because it's wide enough that you get more powder burn in the width of the barrel, not just the length of the barrel. So once you start getting 330 caliber and above, the 338 Federal and stuff like that, you start not losing as much velocity from the shorter barrel. So I think in 375 Ruger, there's a 20-inch barrel and a 23-inch barrel that most firearms are using. And before you get to a muzzle brake, and the difference is like 23 to 75 feet per second in 3 inches of barrel. Yeah, I've heard as little as 20 to 40 feet per second, as much as 75. I hadn't had a chance to test them out against each other. So, what do you use to grease your AR-15? I don't grease it. I put lubrication oil on it, and most of the time I just use brake free.
Yeah, I don't use grease either. Grease attracts dirt and nasty really bad. I use the stuff from Aegis Gun Care, and their lubricant. Uh, it bonds on almost like a molecular level.
Yeah,
It's really, really good. So it works well.
cool. Are you offering to be the fishing guide? Only for you, G23 or Clover. All right. So you want to come up and fish for salmon? Come up, but the next 2 or 3 weeks are probably the best time for reds. And then for silvers, the best time is August, September, and I'm hunting. So screw that. But as a non-resident of Alaska, is there any loophole? I want to hunt grizzly, but the state requires a guide and they ain't cheap. The state requires a guide, or you be with a first family member. So somebody in your immediate family. So if your wife gets stationed here in the military and she becomes a resident, you can hunt with her. But me and you don't look like brothers, my friend. So we can't go to the store and do that. And even then, like if we got caught, the game warden would be like, I'm going to investigate this. So is what. Do you think 270 is too much bang for a CV life scope? Yeah, I got one of their bipods and it's barely holding on a 13.5 pound 6.5 Creedmoor AR-10. So I wouldn't say that it's going to hold on to that. Man, spend as much money on optics as you do on the gun. More. You'll be better. You'll be better off. You'll thank me later. What sparked my interest in firearms? My dad taught me shooting when I was 8 years old, and I just loved it since then. 40 Charter Arms 44 Special Bulldog, best known for being son of Sam's firearm.
True.
It's a Norman tip strike. The tip strikes are not bonded. The bond strikes are bonded. I would go looking for the bond strike. So, what's up, Christopher Abernathy? Well, all right. We've been an hour and 17 minutes. Clover, tell everybody what's coming up on your channel, and we'll go from there.
Man, I don't even know, right? I dropped a video today on a holster. One I got in for the Ruger Black Hawk, which we mentioned earlier when I was out there talking about stuff. So,
Yeah.
right now I've got Tuesday and Thursdays kind of been the video drop days. Just working through, man. I got tons of review stuff and products and other things from Shot that commitments from there that I haven't even really got done yet. Mind on that, and then I've got other stuff that came out of NRA, but a month or two ago. But yeah, at least we're not in the podcast season right now. That's nice, but that'll kick off. The podcast season will kick off again back in probably September of this year. So just trying to play catch up on the other videos right now. That's pretty much it. And part of why I had time to jump in. So,
there you go.
Yeah.
Tomorrow I got a video coming out on my channel. The final review on how I got it to work really well of the 458 Socom upper from Pro 2A Tactical. They sent me an upper to review. I've been taking 6 months. I've been taking my time on it too. So don't feel bad, Clover. I went out and shot it right away, and the first 2 mags ran great. And then after that, I started having issues after issues after issues. And 99.9% of my issues, ammo related. There were some bad batches of Underwood, believe it or not. So it was like, here I am trying to fix the gun when it was really the ammo,
Yeah.
and there's just nothing you could tell what it was. So Now that Underwood has corrected it in the last few batches and their qualities seem to go up, it's not been an issue. So that's that. Last question. Jonathan Rangel wants to know, what's your opinion on a Remington core lock tipped? I do not shoot. Excuse me. I do not shoot any type of non-bonded tipped bullet. You're just asking for it to explode like a VMAX if you hit bone. And that includes a big rib bone of an elk or a moose or a caribou or a bear, not just shoulder bone. I've seen 162 grain, I think it was 162 grain ELDX on my 7 mag just hit a bone and shatter. Freaking VMAX just exploded on the inside, destroyed meat, and then didn't go over. So Glock versus Ruger Revival for long-term survival. Both. I got plenty of videos on that. Both. I like them both. If you could have both in 10 millimeter, that'd be even better. One type of ammo, 2 type of guns, one very reliable, one very, very reliable. So yeah, but that's that. All right, so we're gonna get out of here. This has been an hour and 20 minutes. Don't forget our Mimi page. Don't forget to check out and subscribe to Clover Tack. If you have not subscribed to him, what are you doing with your life? So anyway, guys, God bless. Take care. We'll see you at the range.